All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to jump in?
Always ready. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be taking a closer look at the world of machine learning engineers. And to do that, we're going to be pulling from this fascinating excerpt that we found called The Role of a Machine Learning Engineer Unlocking the Future of Technology. And, I think this topic is relevant for everyone, right? Like, you don't have to be a tech expert to kind of get something out of this.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, like, think about it. You're scrolling through Netflix and you're like, how does it know that I'm in the mood for like a cheesy rom-com or something? Or you get that fraud alert from your bank that saves you from a major headache. That's machine learning in action, people.
It is. That's right. And these engineers are the ones behind the scenes making all that magic happen.
You really are. They're kind of like the wizards of the digital age.
Yeah, I like that the wizards of the digital age.
So the excerpt we're looking at today, it starts off, pretty bold statement calling machine learning one of the most exciting frontiers in technology today. So what do you think? Is that just hype, or is there some truth to that?
Oh, no, I think it's absolutely true. I mean, we're talking about a technology that's changing how we approach pretty much every problem across every industry you can think of.
It's everywhere now.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
look at healthcare, for example. This excerpt talks about AI-powered diagnostics that can detect diseases so much earlier than traditional methods we've been using.
And early detection is key, right?
That absolutely, I mean, it can completely change the outcome for someone's treatment.
That's a big deal.
It is a very big deal.
And I feel like we keep hearing about it everywhere now. Like, it's not just healthcare, it's finance, it's entertainment, even like online shopping. It feels like machine learning is popping up everywhere.
You're right, it is. I mean, in finance, they're using it to prevent fraud in real time, which is huge, both for the banks and for us as consumers.
Right, so they can catch those suspicious transactions before they even happen.
It's exactly that. The source talks about how these algorithms can analyze these massive data sets, and they can identify patterns and anomalies that humans would just never be able to catch.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing the level of precision we can achieve now.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, like how much of this is already happening behind the scenes in our daily lives.
Yeah, most people don't even realize it.
So, okay, we get that machine learning is a big deal, but what about the engineers themselves? Like, what do these people actually do all day?
Right. So the source we're looking at, it defines a machine learning engineer as someone who designs and develops models and systems that enable machines to perform tasks that traditionally required human intelligence.
Okay, so that's a mouthful.
It is.
So basically, they're the ones teaching the machines how to think.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're bridging the gap between data and intelligent action.
So it's not just about coding then, it's about understanding how to make machines learn and make decisions.
Exactly. It's this really unique blend of skills. You need the analytical chops of a data scientist. You need the coding expertise of a software engineer. And then you need this deep understanding of AI principles.
Wow, so it's like a triple threat kind of a job.
Yeah, it really is. It's a fascinating intersection, and I think that's part of what makes it so challenging and so rewarding.
I can see that. And the source mentions that this role helps organizations stay competitive, which makes sense. But can you kind of unpack that a little bit more for us? Like, how does machine learning actually translate into a competitive advantage for a company?
Okay, so think about it this way. In today's world, data is everything, right?
Yeah.
Companies are drowning in data,
Yeah, swimming in it.
but figuring out what to do with all that data, how to extract meaning from it, that can be really overwhelming.
Right. It's like having a million puzzle pieces, but no picture to go with it.
Exactly, and that's where machine learning comes in. That's where these engineers come in.
Mm.
They're the ones who can build the tools that sift through all that data,
Yeah.
identify the trends, make predictions that help companies make smarter decisions.
So it's about making sense of the chaos.
Yes, and whether it's optimizing marketing campaigns, predicting customer churn, or even streamlining operations, machine learning helps companies work smarter and faster.
So they can stay ahead of the game.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not just about keeping up, it's about making the most of the information you already have.
That's right.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about like what a day in the life of a machine learning engineer actually looks like. The source breaks down a whole list of roles and responsibilities,
Right.
but some of them sound way more interesting than others.
Yeah.
Designing algorithms, for example. What does that even mean?
Well, that's where the real creativity comes in. It's like you're understanding a problem, and then you're creating this step-by-step process that a machine can use to learn from data and solve that problem.
Okay.
So let's say you're working for an e-commerce company, and they want to give their customers personalized product recommendations.
Right.
You'd need to design an algorithm that can look at the user's browsing history, their purchase data, even
Yeah.
their social media activity, to figure out what that individual person is most likely to buy.
So it's like you're creating this recipe, but instead of ingredients, you're using data points.
That's a great analogy.
And the end result is a prediction.
Yes, exactly.
So you've got your algorithm, and then what you move on to the next stage, which the source calls building and training models.
Right.
Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference between an algorithm and a model?
So the algorithm is like the blueprint, right? It's the set of instructions, and the model is the actual engine, the thing that puts those instructions into action.
Okay.
It's built using frameworks like TensorFlow or PyTorch,
Mm.
and it's trained on tons and tons of data. And as it processes more data, it gets better at making predictions.
So you're basically building a brain that can analyze information and make judgments like a human would,
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
but on a much larger scale.
Yes, potentially much larger scale.
Wow, so as a machine learning engineer, you're not just writing code, you're like creating this whole thinking machine.
Yeah, and a big part of the job is to keep monitoring those models and refining them. Because the source actually says machine learning systems are never truly finished.
Why is that?
Well, because the world is constantly changing, right? New data is always being generated, trends are shifting, the problems you're trying to solve are evolving, so those models need to adapt too.
It makes sense. You got to keep up with the times. It's like
Exactly.
a never-ending learning process for both the engineers and the machines.
It really is, and that's one of the things that makes this field so exciting. Yeah, it's a constant evolution.
So speaking of learning, let's dive into the required skills section from
Yeah.
this excerpt. There's a whole laundry list of technical expertise here. Some of it's enough to make your head spin.
It can be a little daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's break it down a bit.
All right, let's do it. So first up, programming languages, and the source really emphasizes Python as being like the essential one.
Yeah, Python's kind of the go-to language for machine learning these days.
Why is that?
Well, it's incredibly versatile, for one thing, and it's got this huge ecosystem of libraries and frameworks that are specifically designed for machine learning. So it just makes things a lot easier.
So it's like having all the right tools for the job already built in.
Exactly. You don't have to start from scratch every time.
So if someone's thinking about getting into this field, Python proficiency is non-negotiable.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, thankfully, it's not the hardest language to learn. There are tons of resources out there.
Okay, good to know. The source also mentions machine learning frameworks like TensorFlow and PyTorch. What are those all about?
Okay, imagine you're trying to build a house without any power tools,
Ooh, that sounds painful.
right? It would take forever and it'd be super inefficient. Those frameworks are like the power tools for building machine learning models. They give you these pre-written algorithms, tools for handling data ways to visualize and analyze your results, so it just streamlines the whole process.
So you're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Exactly. And they're constantly being updated with new features and improvements, so it's important to stay current.
Makes sense. Okay. No surprise here, but math and statistics also play a big role. I'm sensing some groans from our listeners right now.
Yeah, I get it. Math can be intimidating, but it really is the backbone of machine learning.
So the source talks about linear algebra, calculus probability statistics. Why are those so important?
Well, at its core, machine learning is about using data to make predictions, and decisions, and math and statistics give you the tools to understand and work with that data effectively.
Okay, so give us an example.
Sure. So linear algebra helps you represent data in a way that computers can understand, and then calculus lets you model these complex relationships within that data.
So it's not just about plugging numbers into a formula, it's about really understanding the relationships between those numbers.
Exactly. And that's where data handling and visualization come in.
Yeah.
The source mentions data wrangling, which is all about cleaning and preparing data for analysis,
Yeah.
and then using tools like, Pandas Matplotlib or Tableau to turn raw data into something you can actually visualize and understand.
Visuals are so powerful, right? Especially when you're trying to communicate complex findings to people who maybe aren't as technical.
Absolutely. A good chart or a graph can make all the difference.
All right, and then finally, we got to talk about cloud computing and infrastructure. The source lists platforms like AWS, Google Cloud, Azure as being super important. And this is where things can get really mind-boggling for me, at least.
Yeah, cloud computing can seem abstract, but think of it this way. You've built this amazing machine learning model that can analyze mountains of data super fast,
Right.
but you need a place to run it.
Mm.
You need to store all that data somewhere, and you need a way to make it accessible to users. That's where those cloud platforms come in.
So they're like the foundation that everything else is built on.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They provide the computing power, the storage, all the services that you need to deploy and manage your applications.
So you're not just a coder, you're like an architect building this whole system.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted role for sure.
All right, so we've talked about the technical stuff, but what about the human element? The source has this whole section on soft skills and competencies, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people overlook those soft skills, but they're just as important as the technical ones, maybe even more so in some cases.
Yeah, I can see that. What are some of the key ones they highlight?
Problem solving is huge. Machine learning engineers are always running into new challenges, unexpected roadblocks. So being able to think critically, break down complex problems, come up with creative solutions, that's essential.
So it's not just about knowing the code, it's about knowing how to apply it to real-world problems.
Exactly. And then communication's also super important. You can be the most brilliant coder in the world, but if you can't explain what you're doing to other people, especially people who aren't technical, your work is going to be lost.
Right, you got to be able to translate those complex concepts into plain English.
Exactly. And then finally, teamwork and machine learning projects almost always involve a whole team of people, data scientists, software engineers, product
Yeah.
managers. And so being able to collaborate effectively, listen to different perspectives, work towards a common goal, that's super important.
So it's not about being a lone wolf in the basement coding all night.
No, definitely not. It's about being a team player.
Okay, so technical skills, soft skills, teamwork, we've covered a lot of ground here now. We'll talk about pathways and potential. The qualifications section in the source talks about the typical education and experience you need for this kind of role.
Right. So they mentioned a bachelor's or master's degree in a relevant field like computer science, data science, mathematics, statistics.
Okay.
A PhD might be required for more research-focused positions.
But a formal degree isn't the only way, right? What
Yeah.
about people who are looking to switch careers or who learn their skills through other means?
Oh, absolutely. Experience is super valuable in this field, and there are lots of ways to get it. The source mentions certifications from places like Coursera, Udemy, or Google Cloud as being really helpful.
It seems like those online learning platforms have really opened up opportunities for people.
They really have. And don't underestimate the power of personal projects.
Yeah.
Building a simple machine learning application, even if it's just for fun, can teach you a ton and give you something to show potential employers.
So it's about showing initiative and passion.
Exactly. It's not just about checking boxes on a resume.
And speaking of resumes, I'm sure our listeners are curious about the job market and the earning potential for machine learning engineers.
Well, the source paints a pretty optimistic picture. They say, the demand for these engineers has just exploded in recent years as companies are realizing how powerful machine learning can be.
So it's a hot field to be in.
Very hot. And that translates into a really competitive job market with some pretty impressive salaries.
What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, the source says entry-level engineers can expect to make around $90,000 to $110,000 a year.
Wow, not bad.
And then with a few years of experience, you can easily be making $150,000 to $180,000.
Okay.
And in some of the big tech hubs like Silicon Valley or New York City, salaries can go even higher, especially for engineers with specialized skills.
So there's definitely room for growth.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a career with a lot of potential, both financially and in terms of making a real impact.
Yeah, I think that's what draws a lot of people to this field. It's not just about the money. It's about being part of something that's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's like you're building the future.
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to a big question. If machines can learn, what does that mean for the future of human work? Are robots going to take over all our jobs?
That's a valid concern, and it's a question a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
While it's true that some jobs will probably be automated as machine learning technology advances, I think it's important to remember that new jobs will emerge as well.
So it's not necessarily a zero-sum game.
Right. It's more about how the nature of work will change. We'll need people to design, build, and maintain these sophisticated machine learning systems.
Right.
We'll need people who can bridge the gap between technology and human needs. People who can make sure that these systems are used ethically and responsibly.
So it's almost like a whole new ecosystem is being created where humans and machines work together.
Exactly. And within that ecosystem, there's going to be a growing need for people who have both the technical skills and the human touch, people who understand not just the how of machine learning, but also the why.
So it's not just about coding, it's about understanding the bigger picture.
Precisely.
Okay, so for someone listening to this and thinking, wow, this sounds amazing, I want to be a part of this, what advice would you give them?
I'd say, first and foremost, be curious. This field is vast, and it's constantly changing. So Dive into online resources,
Hmm.
experiment with personal projects, never stop learning.
Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty.
Exactly. And don't be intimidated if you don't have a computer science degree or years of coding experience. There are so many paths into this field.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, embrace those online learning platforms. Build a portfolio of projects that showcase your skills. Connect with other people in the field. The community is really supportive.
It's all about taking that first step.
Exactly. And remember, the most important skill you can bring to the table is your passion for learning and your desire to make a difference. The technical skills can be learned, but that spark of curiosity and drive, that's what will really set you apart.
Those are wise words.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the nitty-gritty of what machine learning engineers do to the broader impact of this technology on the future of work.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
It really has, and I think what's become clear is that this field is not just about code and algorithms. It's about human ingenuity, creativity, and the potential to create a truly remarkable future.
I couldn't agree more.
And, we've talked about how machine learning can help organizations become more competitive, streamline operations, even improve healthcare outcomes.
Right.
But with all this potential comes a responsibility to think about the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
It's like Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And I think what's really interesting here is that machine learning engineers aren't just coding in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
They're shaping the very systems that will influence decision-making in all sorts of fields.
Wow.
So their work has ethical implications that we can't ignore.
Right, so it's not just about building systems that work, it's about building systems that work fairly responsibly and in a way that aligns with our values.
Exactly. And that requires a deep understanding of not just the technical aspects of machine learning, but also the potential societal impacts.
I can imagine that leads to some pretty complex and challenging discussions.
It does, for sure. I mean, take data privacy, for example. Machine learning often involves analyzing huge amounts of personal data
Mhm.
and making sure that data is used ethically and responsibly. That's paramount.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's the topic that's generating a lot of debate, and rightfully so.
People are becoming more and more aware of how their data is being used, and they want to know that it's being handled with care.
Absolutely. Machine learning engineers need to make privacy a top priority in their designs and be transparent about how data is collected, used, and protected.
Transparency seems to be a recurring theme here. It's not just about building a black box that spits out results. It's about understanding how those results are generated and what the potential consequences might be.
Exactly. And that transparency needs to extend beyond just the technical community. We need to have open conversations that involve engineers, ethicists, policymakers, and the public to make sure that machine learning is used for good.
So it's a collaborative effort.
It has to be. The ethical considerations around machine learning are complex and multifaceted,
Mm.
so we need a diverse range of perspectives to address them effectively.
Well, I think this conversation has highlighted something really important. Becoming a machine learning engineer isn't just about mastering technical skills. It's about understanding the broader context in which this technology operates and thinking about the ethical implications of your work.
It's about recognizing that you're not just building algorithms, you're shaping the future.
And that's a powerful thing.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the specific skills and responsibilities of machine learning engineers to the broader ethical considerations surrounding this rapidly evolving field.
It's been an incredible journey, and I think it's clear that this field is one to watch. It's full of opportunity, innovation, and the potential to solve some of the world's most pressing problems.
I think the takeaway for our listeners is that machine learning is no longer some futuristic concept. It's here, it's transforming industries, and it's something that everyone should be aware of.
Absolutely. Whether you're thinking about a career in this field or just want to stay informed, understanding machine learning is becoming more and more important in our technology-driven world.
So stay curious, explore the resources that are out there, and engage in the conversation about how we want to shape the future of this incredible technology.
That's right. The future of machine learning is in our hands. It's up to all of us to make sure it's a future that benefits all of humanity.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of machine learning engineers. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep. So we've spent a lot of time in this deep dive talking about machine learning engineers and the skills they need and the huge impact they're having on different industries.
Yeah. And it's obvious this field has so much potential, not just for the people who work in it, but for like all of us.
Right. It's exciting to think about how machine learning is going to shape our lives going forward.
Absolutely. And I think, like any powerful tool, we need to make sure we use it wisely and thoughtfully.
That makes sense. We've talked about how machine learning can help businesses get ahead, streamline things, and even improve healthcare. But all this potential comes with a responsibility to think about the bigger picture, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the fascinating things here is that machine learning engineers aren't just, off in a corner writing code. They're actually building the systems that are going to be making decisions in all kinds of fields.
Wow, yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that.
Yeah, so their work has ethical implications we can't ignore.
Right. So it's not just about making systems that work, it's about making systems that work fairly and responsibly and making sure they align with our values.
Exactly. And that means understanding not just the technical stuff, but also like the potential impact on society.
I bet that leads to some pretty intense conversations.
Oh yeah, for sure. Take data privacy, for example.
Hmm.
Machine learning often involves looking at massive amounts of personal data. So making sure that data is used ethically and responsibly, that's crucial.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. And it's something that's being talked about a lot these days, and for good reason.
People are definitely more aware now of how their data is being used, and they want to know it's being handled carefully.
Absolutely. Machine learning engineers need to build privacy into their systems right from the start and be open about how data is collected, used, and protected.
Transparency seems to be a big theme here. It's not just about building a black box that spits out answers. It's about understanding how those answers came about and what the consequences might be.
Exactly. And that transparency has to go beyond the tech world, too.
Hmm.
We need to have these open discussions that include engineers, ethicists, policymakers, and everyday people to make sure machine learning is used for good.
It sounds like everyone needs to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. The ethical stuff around machine learning is complex, and there's no easy answers, so we need people with different backgrounds and viewpoints to figure it out together.
Well, I think this has really highlighted something important. Being a machine learning engineer isn't just about technical skills.
Right.
It's about understanding the bigger picture and thinking about how your work might affect the world.
Yeah, it's about realizing that you're not just writing code, you're actually shaping the future.
And that's a big responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility.
We've covered so much in this deep dive, from the specific things machine learning engineers do to these big ethical questions about this rapidly changing field.
It's been quite a journey, and I think one thing is clear, this field is just getting started. There's so much opportunity and innovation and the potential to solve some of the world's biggest problems.
I think the big takeaway for our listeners is that machine learning isn't some sci-fi thing anymore. It's here, it's changing industries, and it's something we all need to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. Whether you're thinking about a career in this field or just want to stay informed about what's happening, understanding machine learning is becoming more and more important in our tech-driven world.
So stay curious,
Yeah.
check out the resources that are out there, and join the conversation about how we want to shape the future with this incredible technology.
Yeah, the future of machine learning is really in our hands. So it's up to all of us to make sure it's a future that benefits everyone.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of machine learning engineers. Thanks for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure talking with you about all this.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.